This is the Leadership Podcast, and we study leaders. This is episode 483, featuring Zach Mercurio, author, speaker, and researcher specializing in purposeful leadership, mattering, meaningful work, and positive organizational development. Thank you for joining us today. This is Jim Vasilopoulos, founder of Rafty Advisors, and this is the Leadership Podcast.
Hey, everybody. Jan Rutherford, founder of Self-Reliant Leadership. Thanks for making us part of your day as we study leaders. And Jim, we got a note in email today. Did you see it?
I did. That was good. That was nice.
Yeah. So I literally was on a trail in a national park and on the East Coast, and I just started talking to this wonderful person. And then I said, we're talking about a musician, Harry Chapin. And I said, oh, my podcast co-host hates when I bring them up. She goes, what? Would you have a podcast? And I go, hey, I don't go around trails promoting my podcast. But she said, tell me one to listen to. And she goes, I'll send you a note after I listen. And sure enough, she did. I knew she would. She's a wonderful person, Erica. And we love getting those notes when we get new listeners or people find a particular episode compelling. And of course, you can find 482 other episodes at theleadershippodcast.com.
Yeah, we got a nice review, I think, from Colby, a young man named Colby, which was nice. But this is at the point where I typically do the Darley ad read, but I'm not going to do the Darley ad read because I'm just going to talk about Darley for a second. Last week, Paul invited me in and had a meeting with him and got to speak with his team for a while and just answer questions about the podcast. We had a great time. They asked great questions. We had a ball. And in general, I just thought, they've got such a wonderful management team. They are a wonderful company and they do great work and they are growing like gangbusters. They're doing wonderful things. And we're going to talk about this in a future episode once Paul kind of lets me. But they are winning awards left and right, local awards, national awards, doing great things for like being an exceptionally well-run company. They're being recognized for it. And we really want to just thank them for their sponsorship and support. They're continuing to help us in so many different ways. I'm not going to talk about it specifically yet, but Jan and I know that Paul has been working behind the scenes to help us make our 500th episode very special. We're pretty excited about that. We hope our planning comes to fruition, but based on some emails I've been going back and forth past 24 hours, pretty excited at 500. So Darley's a wonderful company and they support our military and first responders. They do great things. If you want to learn more about them, go to darley.com. That's DARLEY.com. Darley, you serve others, we serve you.
And I can pretty much assure you that the 500th episode will not be a Jim and Jan episode.
No.
I'm pretty sure it won't. Hey, Zach Mercurio is our guest today. He's an author, researcher, leadership development facilitator specializing in purposeful leadership, mattering, and meaningful work. He advises leaders and organizations worldwide on practices for building cultures that promote well-being, motivation, and performance. He holds a PhD in organizational learning, performance, and change, and serves as one of Simon Sinek's optimist instructors. Simon Sinek is a past guest of our show. And Zach teaches a top-rated course on creating mattering at work. His new book, The Powering Mattering, How Leaders Can Create a Culture of Significance, is out now. And Zach, welcome to the show. And what's not in the public bio? What did we miss?
Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jim. I have two boys, 10 and 7, and I live in Colorado. So I spend a lot of my time outside, especially in the summer, cycling, camping. And so we've just had a blast. We're equally exhausted and happy because we've had a great summer outside.
What's the longest hike you've taken those boys on?
Ooh, gosh, I think they're approaching now 6 miles.
Oh,
That's pretty good, 10 and 7-year-old.
yeah.
But we have a camper van, like this converted ProMaster camper van. So they've been on like 4x4 Jeep tours in Sedona, Arizona in the freezing rain. So they're pretty travel accustomed, which is awesome. We have a lot of fun.
And if you're in Colorado, you have a dog.
2 dogs.
Yeah, of course you do. When you come here or you're born here, you have to get get a dog. What kind of
Yeah.
dogs?
The one is, they're both mixes. I don't know what they are. One is
Yeah.
like this little terrier mix that my 7-year-old picked out from the shelter. The other is a dog we've had. She's 12 now. She's like a pit bull lab mix. And I will add, I'm going to add something else. I'm now a snake owner.
Oh,
My 7-year-old is obsessed with reptiles. And so he saved his money for this snake, researched all of the terrarium specifications. And so it's actually been a really cool hobby. It's been cool to see him research something, take ownership over something. So that's been fun.
I was weeding yesterday, and we don't have a yard per se. We have like natural, our property's natural Colorado. And I was weeding in rocks and stuff the other day, and I'm like, what are you doing sticking your hand in there? I've been really lucky, but I'm like,
Yeah,
there are rattlesnakes.
there are. Luckily, they're nice enough to warn you.
Yeah, they are. Well, that's awesome. Well, hey, we want to we want to get going right into the leadership stuff, because we say we study leaders. So, you heard us, Jim and I, kind of pause as we said the word mattering, because that's not a word that we say very often. But if you could define that word in the leadership context, and the difference between a leader who truly conveys it and one who merely motivates.
Well, to understand the verb mattering, we have to understand what it means to matter.
Okay.
And the first thing we did as human beings was, when you were born, you reached out your arms in a hugging motion. Scientists call it our grasp reflex, to actually find somebody to matter enough to keep you alive. In fact, every single employee, every client, every stakeholder, every listener would not be here if at some point they hadn't mattered enough to another human being to keep them going. And so that instinct to be significant enough to another person turns into the psychological need to feel seen, heard, and valued by the people around us. It does not go away at work. It does not go away wherever we go as human beings. When that need is met, when we are seen, when we are heard, when we do feel significant to someone else, we experience what psychologists call mattering. So mattering is the experience of feeling significant to someone, in this case, to a leader. That comes from two things: feeling valued by them, and knowing exactly how you uniquely add value to both them, their team, and the larger organization. Different from things like belonging, different from things like inclusion. Belonging is feeling welcomed and accepted and connected in a group. Inclusion is feeling that you can take an equal active role in that group. But mattering is feeling significant to individuals in that group. And it requires a particular set of interpersonal skills. So yes, you can vaguely motivate someone, you can vaguely appreciate someone, recognize somebody, but the leader who is showing someone how they matter is on an interaction by interaction basis, showing them that they're seen, they're heard, that they're valued, and that they add value.
Yeah. I've got to follow up. Allow me to get the lead in. We had a past guest, you might know him, Ron Carucci. And Ron said, hey, there's two questions you never want an employee to ask. One, do I matter? And two, do I belong? And, I think it's a great thing. Do I matter? Does my job matter? Do I belong here? We don't want people to ask that. I was with a team today of executives, and they said, how are you guys feeling? It's been tough around here. How you feeling? And somebody said, I'm just back, and the energy just feels low. And I said, well, why do you think that is? And it was, the response was, it had, to do with, the way people have been led a little bit. And I'm wondering, how you connect, energy, commitment, mattering. I mean, all that, and that responsibility that individuals have and the leaders have.
I mean, all human energy is an outcome of knowing that we matter. Think about it. You wouldn't have done anything today if you didn't believe at some small level that your life was worthy of your unrelenting energy. You wouldn't have gotten up. You wouldn't have had a drink of water. You wouldn't have been here right now. We have to believe that we matter to take action. That's why if I were to summarize the work motivation research over the last half century, I'd summarize it in one line. It's almost impossible for anything to matter to someone who doesn't first believe that they matter, right? So if we want someone to contribute to, for example, find their purpose in work or contribute to our team, they first have to believe they're worthy of contributing.
Mm-hmm.
If we want people to use their strengths, they first have to believe that they have them. If we want people to share their voice, they first have to believe their voice is significant. So the original title of my book was Mattering Comes First, because not only does it come first as a survival instinct as human beings that turns into that fundamental need, it also comes before many of the things we say we want in our organizations. And like you said, I'm glad you brought up human energy, because every outcome in an organization is an outcome of human energy. And what happens, and I think what I've noticed happening, is a lot of times we try to get the outcome, we try to achieve the result without strategically and rigorously regenerating the human energy needed to achieve that result.
Yeah.
And the ultimate energizer is knowing that you and your life and your work are worthy of your energy. And it is an energizer. Research shows that it actually can translate our minds and transform our minds and our bodies. There was a researcher named John Taylor. He did a study with over 1,000 adults, and he measured like cortisol levels in their blood and other hormone that incite energy, both positive and negative. And what he found was that those who indicated that they had more relationships in their life and work in which they felt that they mattered to people, they felt significant, seen, known, heard, had objectively lower cortisol levels, and had more dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, which are the neurotransmitters that control for mood, movement, and motivation. And if you think about work, you think about energy on a team: mood, movement, motivation, energy. Mattering is the ultimate energizer.
Yep.
Yeah. I love this. This is already like, up there with like one of my favorite kind of topics and episodes. I just, this stuff I think is just so good because it gets to the root of what matters without being like, here are the 5 things you need to do to lead or motivate better. It's like, it's got substance and there's science behind this and there's, method behind it. I know you just touched on some of the science there, but, as a researcher, I find this really fascinating. Tell us a little bit more about like the measurable benefits that leaders can find. Like, it's like, help me take all your, for the skeptical leader that's saying the touchy-feely stuff, like, how is this going to help me in my business? Like, I just think this is fascinating.
The 2 beliefs that are necessary for productivity and performance, and this has been studied by researchers Mike Judge, Joyce Bono, are the 2 beliefs that all employees need to have, are the belief that I'm worthy and the belief that I'm capable. Those 2 beliefs drive performance and productivity and are necessary for performance and productivity. The way to develop those beliefs is when other people reflect back to us that we're worthy and that we're capable. A lot of people tell me, Zach, how can I get my employees to be more confident or my new employees to be more confident? And it's important to recognize that we don't build confidence on our own. We build true confidence when we know someone has our back. When we know we already matter enough to somebody so that we can go out, try, experiment, fail, produce, take risks, learn, because we know we already matter enough to somebody, right? We have that secure base. So when the research indicates when a leader does this, when a leader creates that secure base in which they demonstrate care for the person, they show that person that they're valued, that person then develops the confidence needed to add value. And researcher Isaac Prelotensky, a psychologist who studied mattering, calls this the mattering wheel, right? Feeling valued gives us the confidence we need to add value. The more we add value, the more we see the evidence of our significance, the more we feel valued. And the result is motivation, resilience, well-being, and performance. I think it's important to note that there is a sort of subconscious idea in the business world that people should be valued once they add value. But it's really important for any leader listening to understand that the opposite is psychologically true. People need to be valued to add value. So when you invest in this as a leader, when you invest in the skills to see, to hear, to truly make sure everybody knows exactly how they're making a difference in your organization on a daily basis and through daily interactions, you are giving them the belief that they're worthy, the belief that they're capable, needed to add value.
Okay, so I love this. This is great. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Worthy, totally get it. Because I have a favorable kind of bias right now, capable is a word that, like, I think I get what you're saying. But what I want to do is kind of examine that from a kind of a skeptical nature, just, for someone who might be listening, just say, like, a lot of people I think view capable as like, you can already do the job. I've hired you, you've got the skills, you can already do the job. But just because someone's worthy, like, I need to, like, train people up. I need to get people skilled. So being capable, I interpret as, in a very positive bias, like, you're capable of learning and leaning in and developing into doing what we need you to do. Whereas I think a more skeptical manager might look at this and say, well, you're not capable, so you're not performing to what we need to. And so I just need to hire people that are already proven that they can do this, that are capable, instead of people who might need to develop into something greater, even extend beyond. How do you address the skepticism when someone says, yeah, someone might be worthy, but they're not capable? So what do I do with them?
So self-efficacy is not necessarily having all the abilities. It's the belief that I'm capable of learning. It's the belief that I can do it, that I can make it through. There's this great study done on the Special Forces Officer Selection course. It's one of the most brutal courses. And researchers wanted to figure out which characteristics, psychological characteristics, predicted those who surmounted the course and those who succumbed to it, quit. The number one factor had nothing to do with mental toughness or physical toughness or psychological toughness. It had to do with self-efficacy. They believed that they could do it, even though they hadn't yet. And what did those officers have in common? They all reported elevated experiences in their life of mattering to other people. And why is that? Because when we reflect back to people that they have what it takes, that they have potential, they develop the confidence they need to actually learn. I will also add this. If you don't think someone's capable as a leader, they should not be under your care, right? So if you don't think someone's capable, they probably should not be under your care. But if you're going to keep them on your team, then you better make sure that you're investing in those two things, making sure they know the evidence of their significance, make sure that they know that they have your belief, that they have strengths that you've already affirmed and are developing, and that they have your support. For example, a lot of people say to me, Zach, how do I show people they matter if I just need them to improve their performance? I always say, you show people they matter so that they can improve their performance. There was this great study done of performance enhancing feedback, and the researchers found that about 40% of performance enhancing feedback actually decreases performance. And why is that? It's because those who were critiqued did not feel cared for by the critiquer. They didn't feel understood. They didn't feel heard. They didn't feel cared for. So when someone gave them that feedback to try to improve their performance before they felt cared for, they didn't listen, because is something going to matter to me if I don't feel that I matter to you? So I think what's important to recognize is that people need the self-esteem, self-efficacy to improve their performance. And when you invest in mattering along the way, you build the relational groundwork for these tough conversations to occur and to happen. And so creating an ecosystem, a culture of mattering, actually creates the foundation needed to achieve and perform. But I don't agree that if you don't believe someone's capable, they should not be in your care anymore. But if they're not being relocated somewhere else, they're in your care, and you owe it to them to show them how they matter.
Now, there's an interesting quote, I think it's on LinkedIn last week, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was something akin to, feedback without a relationship comes across as aggression. And, it's just, that thing. I think we've got to think about the relationship we have with the people that are in our charge, and I don't want to be like, oh, you got to care for them like in a parochial parental way, but it's like, you got to care. You got to, have a relationship with these people. And it's, I think so many people, like, it's like, well, the relationship is the paycheck, no.
Yeah. The problem with this is that, so what we're talking about actually is about the key skills to build trust.
Mhm.
It is impossible to trust somebody who doesn't care for you.
Yeah.
It is impossible to trust somebody in a relationship in which you don't feel psychologically and physically safe around, right? we'd all agree on that. But the key is, are we doing the work to build the relationship? So the feedback conversation, like the performance improvement feedback conversation, the quality of that conversation actually happens in the days, weeks, months, and years before that conversation,
100%.
in which you're laying that relational groundwork. And I think a lot of leaders miss out on this. I want to offer some advice on how you can actually show someone how they matter while you're critiquing them. And it comes from a psychologist named David Yeager. He calls it wise feedback. He's studied why people improve their performance. And when these three elements are present, they tend to improve their performance almost 50% more than those who don't get these three elements. So anytime you're going to critique somebody, make sure you say to them, I believe in you. There's a reason why I'm spending this time with you. I believe in you. I believe in the impact that you can make here. So your belief. The second is they need to be reaffirmed that they have what it takes to make these changes. So I rely on you for X, Y, Z. I've seen this in you. I've seen your drive. I need you to use that. And then the last is they need your support. I'm here to help. And you know what? I'm going to check in with you every Tuesday at 8 a.m. and we're going to have a call to see how it's going and what roadblocks I can remove. That's when people improve their performance, because they feel that they matter and that someone has their back, which goes all the way back to, as children, the reason why we learn, grow, develop, and become resilient is what's called secure attachment. It means that we can go out, try, fail, experiment, because we know we already matter.
You know, when I've given feedback, I've always said at the beginning, hey, I wouldn't be having this conversation if I didn't care about you.
Yeah.
But I did want to say something. Jim knows I'm going to bring this up. You know, as a guy that went through the Special Forces course, I can tell you there was two things. There was a few people that said I could do it. A couple, literally. There was two people said I could do it. And there was a whole bunch of people said I couldn't do it. The people that said I couldn't do it were as motivating as the people that said I could. I bet if you dug into that, I bet you would find that was the case with a lot of people that went through the course. It was not only affirming what people believed in you, but trying to prove other people wrong.
That's interesting how seeing the absence of it can also build your self-efficacy by saying, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, literally what motivated me more was thinking about putting on the beret, you know, and showing the people that didn't think I could do it. But I visualized that more than I visualized the people that said I could do it.
How did you develop that mindset to challenge?
Oh, it's so long ago. How did I develop? I just knew. I mean, it's like what we heard from Don Yeager on the show. I didn't want to fail. I mean, I wanted to win. I wanted to get the beret.
Yeah.
More than wanting to win, I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to let the people that said I was going to make it down, and I wanted to prove other people wrong. I didn't want to fail.
That key right there, the first part of that, I didn't want to let the people who believed in me down.
Yeah.
That's one of those outcomes of mattering that we found true accountability. When someone shows us that we matter to them, we don't want to let them down because they've believed in us. I met Don at a conference and he was speaking with the former commander of the Blue Angels and Commander Armitage. And he had I had done a session on mattering and we were talking after, and he said, Zach, you know, a lot of people think that it's all about our technical expertise, but we spend about 4 months together caring about each other, learning about each other, before we even get in the cockpit, because we need to fail together.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm failing with people, and that failing with is so crucial when it comes to performance, but that's that mattering piece.
Well, that's, I would call that the sense of duty that people have to one another, you know, I mean, in that loyalty. I mean, people often think loyalty, well, they'll be loyal to me as the leader.
Right.
And I think, no, we want them to be loyal to each other, to the team, to the organization, to the client, you know, to those you serve.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're loyal to, you're dealing with a charismatic or a autocratic leader, which has got its whole set of stuff. But let me ask you about this. You know, we've kind of touched on some of the, you know, the mistakes leaders make and different things. And you've created this optimism course with Simon. I mean, that's an interesting thing. You know, I mean, that word in and of itself. I mean, just an hour ago, I was on the phone with someone talking about old people.
Hmm.
And we're talking about, old people are either really cranky or they're really optimistic. I mean, there's like, it just seems like it's binary,
Mm.
And anyway, so this whole idea of optimism, I think is just fascinating, even to the point of doing hard things. You're optimistic that I'm going to make this. So tell us about this course. I mean, I'm really, really interested. And I guess I'm really interested in why, and on the evidence side, why you think this can make a difference in what most people perceive as a personality trait versus a behavioral change that you can make.
Yeah, I mean, optimism is the belief that the future can be better and that I have what it takes to make it better now. Right? It's the belief in personal agency, and I can change how I show up in the next interaction I have and create a better future. My grandfather is now 102. He just turned 102. And
Wow.
since I was 6 years old, he would write me a message in a card. He would put like a $5 bill in it. And up until a couple of years ago, when he had memory issues, he would still send it to me. And all he wrote in the card every single time was, Zach, how do you improve the moment? So how do you better the moment that you're a part of? And so Simon asked me to come and do a course with him on really the human skills to show people that they're significant so that they can develop that belief that they have what it takes to improve the moment, to develop that optimism. And what we really focus on is these essential human skills of showing the next person you interact with how they're valued and how they add value so they can come to believe that they have what it takes to improve the moment. I would argue that a lot of people, and there is some research that backs this up, a lot of people that are cynical or pessimistic have actually had perpetual experiences where they don't feel like they can or don't yet matter, or they've experienced learned helplessness. They've been in systems that tell them implicitly or explicitly that what you do, what you don't do, what you say can't, won't, and never will matter. So I would rephrase a lot of cynics and a lot of those who are in places where they don't see the hope as probably being victims of systems in which they've experienced learned helplessness. And one way to get out of that is to start focusing on an interaction to interaction basis, how you're showing up. And one of the things that we've identified is that collectively, for the last 25 years, we've been able to communicate with one another using short digital transactions. Like,
Nudges.
well, like Jan, if you give me some bad news, I can just send you like a thumbs down emoji and say, sorry to hear that. And I don't have to sit with you anymore and engage with you and show compassion and show hope for the future and seek understanding. Every time we've gotten out of that situation, every time we've sent the short text message, we've gotten out of social learning in which we learn and hone these skills to care, to cultivate hope, to cultivate optimism. And so what Simon and I have been talking about and seeing is that we have this massive human skills gap as a result of the last 25 years, that people actually don't have the skills to develop caring relationships that show someone the evidence of their significance. In fact, a lot of Gen Zers and younger generations who are coming into the workforce, think about this, have never been in a situation in which they've had to show compassion to another human being in real time.
Well, Wall Street Journal had an article on this on Gen Z just this week.
Yeah, has never had to show compassion, show understanding, demonstrate empathy. So what we're trying to do in the age of artificial intelligence, where everybody is talking about artificial intelligence, what they're not talking about is that artificial intelligence can do our tasks. It cannot take moral responsibility for them. It cannot cultivate human trust. And the skills to create human trust are the skills of demonstrating care, cultivating hope, cultivating optimism in interactions. And so we identified this need for a mass reskilling of these things we've called soft for the last 50 years as quintessentially human and the things that will be irreplaceable. And so here we are. And the course it's really exciting seeing the feedback to the course because it gives people a name for something, especially when they hear this name mattering. Like, yeah, one of the reasons why nothing matters to me is because I don't feel that I matter to anybody.
It's almost like the opposite of mattering. What you're describing is nihilism.
Yeah. two things happen when we don't feel significant, when we fall into this learned helplessness. And this is important for leaders at all stages of society and organizations. We either withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
So think about any relationship you're in which you feel unseen, unheard by somebody. We usually sink back, we withdraw. Quiet quitting, for example, was the inevitable withdrawal response to people who felt insignificant, unvalidated by the systems that they're in. So they withdraw. We withhold energy. We withhold information. But it can be much louder, or we act out in desperation, complaining, blaming, gossiping. A lot of toxic behaviors we're seeing in workplaces are acts of trying to get the attention that people aren't getting in their personal lives. It's no surprise that the Gen Z generation is the loneliest generation in history.
Yeah.
All right. And it's no surprise that we see leaders complaining about toxic behaviors or that people don't want to work hard anymore. It's very difficult for anything to matter to someone who doesn't first believe that they matter. But we have to understand that there's a massive skills gap.
Yeah. And again, what you're getting at is the heart of leadership is to inspire.
Yeah.
I mean, that hope and that optimism. Before we continue the discussion, Zach, I just want to real quick just talk about Darley for a second. I'm going to go off script too, Jim, and just say we're really lucky. We know a bunch of podcasters out there and they've got sponsors. And again, it's all about the money. And we're really lucky because we have a sponsor that really cares about leadership and wants to be affiliated with a show that we really care about leadership. And we talk all the time. Jim and I, like all our clients, are works in progress. We're trying to figure this whole leadership thing out. We say we study leaders. And I remember an old article from, HBR from a long time ago, Dan Goleman, what makes a leader? And I still think that's a penultimate question that we're trying to answer on this show. And I want to thank the Darley organization and Paul in particular for sponsoring our work, our little bit of work that we're trying to do to shine a light on the topics that matter as far as human behavior and human connection and collaboration for the greater good.
Yeah, 100%. I am loving this conversation. I'm just like, there are so many directions I want to take this. And it's interesting how we talk about kind of the loneliness epidemic, and we talk about AI a little bit, and it's interesting because you talk about like AI can't be human. It doesn't have those human qualities. But what it's really good at, and this terrifies me, is it's good at pleasing us. It's good at giving us things that satisfy us in the moment. It's really good at, and even if it's inaccurate, it's like, as long as they get that, response that is pleasing to us, maybe not what fulfills us, maybe not what tells us anything that's, really important and what we need to hear, but it's great at pleasing us, but not that human stuff. I'm really curious what you're seeing, Zach, as you kind of dig into this.
Yeah.
Because this is terrifying to me how seductive this is. It's like the siren song we shouldn't be lulled into, even though there's some great that comes with it. It's like, we're on this precipice of like, are we making huge mistakes here?
Yeah. I think the one way to get out of that despair is to remember what it can't do. I think we talked about this.
Mhm.
Like AI could do this podcast. Like now, it could replicate or produce a podcast like this, but it cannot be accountable to what we say here. It can't be accountable to its accuracy to other people. Only humans can be accountable to other humans. So it can't take responsibility. And what I worry about is that what we have left as human beings is that moral responsibility, which is built through building trust. I worked with a retailer who was telling me all about their AI chatbot. I was guiding people through the transactions. And then I asked them, I said, who's responsible for what happens in the transaction? Right. And the AI is not. Only human beings can accept moral responsibility. This is likely why the World Economic Forum found that human skills by 2030 are likely to outpace technical skills and what is going to be most important for the future of work. And guess what the things they talked about are? The things we're talking about here: empathy, compassion, And I do worry about the loneliness epidemic too, of people trying to solve their loneliness by interacting with AI, which is happening. And one of the things that we've gotten wrong about loneliness is a symptom. It's not an underlying issue. It never has been psychologically. Loneliness is an outcome, and it's not the outcome of being alone. Loneliness is the outcome of feeling that you don't matter. So it's not the absence of social contact, it's the absence of perceived social value to other human beings. It's the quality of the interaction that matters, not the quantity when it comes to loneliness. The same is true with things like disengagement. Like if you look at like employee disengagement, we're more disengaged than ever. Yeah, we spend more money on programs, initiatives to improve engagement. But there's a couple data points that you'll see that are driving engagement. Just 40% of people in the latest Gallup report said that they had someone that cared for them as a person in work. Just 40%. 30% said someone invested in their unique potential. This is despite the rise in AI tools. So what's happening is that we have this moment where the age of AI is actually necessitating the age of human trust. The age of human trust is necessitating the skills to care, to create psychological and physical safety in a time where those have been depleted for the last 25 years because we've relied on digital communications to interact with each other. And the result is you're seeing this collective mattering deficit. And this is why I think now is the time to double down on these human skills, especially in the age of AI. I think it's the age of human trust. I think human trust, having a human being who cares for you, who has your back, who takes responsibility for the impact they have on you, is going to be like a luxury item in the future. It's going to be the ultimate commodity if we don't do something about it. And luckily, we can do something about it. We can commit to relearning and doubling down on these skills.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I've got all the dates right on this, but like in The Invisible Leader, you talk about purpose is the real leader. Okay. But you probably wrote that before AI really took over and before some of this stuff, like, so now as you kind of examine that kind of in retrospect, like that thought process, which now might be more relevant and important now than it was before. I talk about that a little bit because I'm really interested in your retrospective looking back on what you said. I'm not saying it's wrong. I mean, like you are spot on, but like, as you reflect back on that now, considering what's going on now, like tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I call purpose the invisible leader in the first book is because Mary Parker Follett was a management scholar in the late 1920s. And for anybody who doesn't know her, she was like literally, there's a book called The Prophet of Management.
Yeah.
All of the things she talked about in the 1920s have come to fruition now in regard to the importance of mattering and purpose. And she had this one insight that was really powerful. It said leaders and followers are both following the invisible leader, the common purpose, right? That our collective why, the contribution we want to make, is the ultimate harmonizer of our actions, our attitudes in organizations. And so the organizations that succeed will allow that purpose to take over, that why, right? That contribution. But where I saw a gap is, as I was doing this work, is I realized that it was very hard for people to contribute, to see their purpose, if they don't first believe they're worthy of having one. And this is where we started uncovering, gosh, we've had a lot of people find their why. We've had a lot of people state their contribution. We have organizations who are telling us they have this big world bettering purpose, yet people feel degraded, demeaned, and insignificant in their everyday interactions. And so I was like, there's got to be something that comes before. And that's where the research on mattering fit in. And I would consider the last book I wrote, The Power of Mattering, if there is such a thing in nonfiction, to be the prequel to The Invisible Leader. One of the things that we've done, that we've gotten wrong, is we have expected people to care about their work before doing the rigorous work to ensure they feel cared for in everyday relationships.
Yeah.
People will not care until they feel cared for. It doesn't matter how big your purpose is. They won't care if they don't feel cared for in every daily relationship that they have. This is what I'm seeing in healthcare. I have a lot of healthcare clients right now who have a job that matters, but they don't experience mattering in their job. So I think until we figure out the interaction level of what people experience in daily interactions, then we can we can show them how they're contributing to this bigger purpose, and they believe it, which allows it to really take over.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, I want to dig into really practical for the leaders listening. I think so far we've provided really great context, but again, if leaders, and this is a discussion I had this morning with a group, about their culture and, and energy and all that different stuff. So everybody knows culture is really important. But when we look at what you're saying, it's like, okay, I'm the CEO of a company. How do I take what you just said and make my culture better? Like, what's the one thing I can do, the next thing I can do that's really going to matter?
Well, I mean, the first thing you should do is every leader in your organization should be able to ask their people this question. When you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And they should be able to, they should listen, write that down, and do more of that.
But it is listening. Isn't that probably the main thing?
Right. But I mean, well, I would say you got to ask this question, like when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And actually understand how your behaviors impact that. I mean, that's the first thing. We gather data on things like employee engagement, but engagement is a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
Right. Again.
But my point is, when we feel cared for, it's because we're seen and heard.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The elemental form of mattering. So what we've done is we've interviewed hundreds of people. We've surveyed thousands of people. And we asked them this question: when you feel that you matter to your leader, what are they doing? And there are 3 major practice areas.
Okay.
We have to feel noticed, so seen and heard. And we have to feel affirmed. We have to know how our uniqueness makes a unique difference. And we have to feel needed. We have to feel relied on and indispensable. And so if you're a leader, for example, leading an organization, you have to ask yourself, does every leader who is responsible for a team have the skill set to make sure people feel seen and heard, make sure people feel affirmed, and make sure they feel needed? And it happens interaction by interaction. It does not happen in programs or through symbols.
Let me tell you what I think is the biggest obstacle, and I'd be interested in how you think you overcome it. Everybody, again, we're doing a workshop, and I don't care what company, blue collar, white collar, what industry, everybody in the room of what you just said is going to go like this.
Yep.
They're going to nod their head. Yep. And the issue is they are all overwhelmed. They are all player coaches, not just coaches. And well, there's this crisis, and there's this crisis, and there's this, and I can't hire a person to do this, and I'd love to delegate, but the team. And what I think the problem is prioritizing their time. And again, the incentives are the quarterly, and you've got to hit this, and and I always say on my expeditions, you've got to slow down to speed up. Nobody is willing to slow down to show people they matter, they belong, they care, they want them developed, because they're on the hamster wheel. So how do you get through to people and say, it is never going to get better until you just stop, take the time? How do you get through to people on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important to recognize that hurry and care cannot coexist.
Oh, that's good.
You can't care. So you can care about your people from afar. It's easy to say that. But to care for somebody means you have to get up close. I mean, whether it's I told you I had a pet snake now, whether it's a snake, a car, or a person, to care for something means you have to understand it deeply. And understanding takes time. Now, I will say what happens in the absence of understanding, when leaders can't connect, they usually try to control. So a lot of times when leaders control using fear, mandates, rules, there's usually a connection issue. Like they haven't spent the time or the attention to truly understand, so they seek to control. We try to control what we don't understand.
Oh, so well said.
And but I would say this is not about adding more to your plate. This is not about adding more interactions. It's actually about optimizing the interactions you already have. I'll give an example of this, like in a remote work setting. let's say that you, and this is a practice of noticing, just to show you how small these practices and skills are that can make a massive difference. Let's say that you and I are on a remote call right now. I have this unnatural ability to click leave after we're done, right? I can notice that you're frustrated on a call. And if I'm in a hurry and I don't think about mattering or noticing as a strategic skill that I'm expected to practice in this relationship, and my organization hasn't shown me that, and I see that you're frustrated, I can click leave and not think about you until next week, until we talk again. That's not normal communication. But what a leader who cultivates mattering will do, who knows that noticing is a skill and something they must do, is if I notice you're frustrated, when I click leave, I will call you and I will say, hey, Jan, I sense that you were frustrated on that call. Is that right? And just those micro interactions of reaching out and demonstrating that you see and hear somebody and seeking understanding and acknowledging what you're seeing can go a massively long way. And that's what we're talking about. That's where mattering is cultivated. It's not cultivated through programs, initiatives, or symbols. It's cultivated in moments, in very small interactions. So I actually don't think that it's about adding more. I think it's about optimizing the interactions you already have. For example, if you have meetings, we all do, you should not be spending your meetings on exchanging information. Right? Most meetings I've observed when I'm coaching leaders are update fests. We spend our incredibly rare time together on exchanging information about what each of us are doing, which could be an email. What can't be an email is checking in on a conflict of ways of working and resolving it. What can't be an email is checking in on how someone's parent is doing because you know they're in the hospital. What can't be an email is working to solve a really complex problem together. So leaders should be spending their rare time together, the time they already have that they're doing updates right now, doing all these stand-up meetings, should be spending their time on how they are together, how they're working together, not on what they're doing. I mean, those two things, just that can start to create a culture where people actually feel seen. They have the permission to be seen and heard.
Yep. That's great.
Yeah. This is such a rich conversation. I'm enjoying this so much. And it's just, you know, it's interesting because it's like these are just lessons in being human. And you know,
Being a good human.
yeah, being a good human. And it's just so interesting to me that like somehow with all our advancement and what we think is, whether it's technology or in, you know, business processes and, you know, KPIs and managing our businesses, we're just getting further and further away from just being good humans. And the recipe is so darn simple. It's something, when I listen to what we're talking about now, these are the things my grandmother talked about. It is nothing I learned in school, nothing I learned in my MBA classes. This is just the simple truths of the wisdom I received from a lady who grew up in rural Greece with nothing. And you know, it's interesting as I reflect on that. You've seen a lot in your career, Zach. What are you reflecting on now as you kind of have seen so much? I love the fact that your book was the prequel to the other book, because a lot of people wouldn't say that, you know, saying like, no, this is, I went back and the context there is enriching my earlier context of what I was thinking. Tell us a little bit about how your thinking has evolved.
So what you just said is really important. This stuff may be common sense. It's not common practice. And I think Stephen Covey once said, what's common sense is usually not common practice.
Mhm.
And there's a couple of things that we have to unpack there from what you just said. One is we've called these things soft for a half century. And anytime our brain sees something as soft or simple, we devote less energy to it. We approach it less rigorously. It's why if I had an organization and they were talking about, you know, how to affirm people positively, and they had a meeting set up, and then they had a budget meeting they needed to schedule, and one of them needed to go, they would always axe the human skills training first, right? So when we see something as soft or simple, we're susceptible to an overconfidence bias. We think we're better at it than we are. It's why most people rate themselves better listeners than their partners rate them as listeners. Right? We think we got it. But the other thing that's happening is that we are also in systems that have fracked our attention. So Gloria Marx is a psychologist. She studied our ability to pay attention to one thing at one particular time, including the person across from us. 10 years ago is about 2.5 minutes before we start thinking about something else. Now it's about 47 seconds. So what does that do for the person in front of us? Well, we have so much going on that our environments make it easy for us not to care about what's in front of us and who's in front of us. And so we have to redevelop the skills to pay attention. And we're not getting them in school, right? I mean, less than 2% of the world, Jan, you talked about this, less than 2% of the world gets any formal education on how to listen well. And remember, we're also not getting it through the social learning that we have, because we're spending more time on tablets and phones than with people in which, for example, 20, 30, 40 years ago, we would have seen older people in our lives, or seen our parents, or seen other people be in difficult conversations. We would have seen and witnessed them show compassion, seek understanding, and that's how we learned it. So I think until we realize that these are hard skills that we must relearn rigorously and apply rigorously, and for organizations, reward and incentivize, then we're going to be in this perpetual loop of disengagement, loneliness, underperformance. And it's only going to get worse, because you mentioned something really interesting as well with regard to AI. AI will take your job if all you know how to do is technical and operational things. There's been CEOs out there who have said publicly, AI could probably do what I do better operationally. AI will take your job if you do not master the human skills to cultivate trust and care.
So, I mean, I wonder if you can frame that in the form of a challenge as we close out today, Zach.
Yeah, I would say first, my challenge to you is to ask everybody in your life and in your organization the question, when you feel that you matter to me, what am I doing? And do more of those things. But second, relearn, recommit to honing and developing the skills to be human. I think one of the things that people don't talk about enough, and that prevents leaders from doing this, is that leaders forget that leadership is a separate occupation. It is a separate occupation. Leading others is a separate occupation that requires a separate set of skills. Those skills have been the same for a century, right? People trust their leaders. They're motivated by their leaders. They're inspired by their leaders when they feel valued by them and they know how they add value to a bigger cause, a bigger purpose, and a bigger team. And so if you're a leader right now, making sure that you're seeking out those opportunities to develop those human skills. If you're the leader of an organization, making sure your organization is approaching, developing, and evaluating the essential human skills to cultivate trust as robustly as any financial or product strategy, and make sure your systems incentivize them to happen. You can't expect someone to be morally good in a system that incentivizes them not to be. So think about the behaviors that you and your organization are incentivizing, and are they incentivizing the human skills?
Yeah.
Zach, this has been
That's great.
fantastic. I've really enjoyed, I know Jan has too, this conversation with you today.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jan. Me too.
And I think the only thing is, like, I think about this, I don't think those skills have been around for a century. I think they're since the beginning of the time.
At the beginning of time.
Yeah, it's a long time. And the only thing I think our listeners are really going to be thinking about, aside from all the wisdom you shared with us, is when Jim and Jan are old, are we going to be the grumpy old men, or are we going to...
Yeah. What do you mean when, Joe? What do you mean when?
But yeah, it's right here. It's staring us in the face. For our listeners, that's all we have for you this week. We'll include ways for you to connect with Zach in our show notes. So make sure to visit us at theleadershippodcast.com. And remember, the business of business is relationships. The business of life is human connection. Robin S. Sharma. It's a wrap.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Podcast. To listen to more shows or to access the books and content discussed on this show, be sure to visit theleadershippodcast.com. The material in this podcast is copyright by Rafti Advisors and Self-Reliant Leadership and must have written approval before commercial application.